Before we start, it's very important. Do you already have your alcoholic beverages with you? All right, let's pour some. Nicolas, you seem to be very classy. You're drinking.
So it's Châteauneuf du Pape. Châteauneuf is wine from the Rhône Valley, which goes from Lyon to Marseille.
Very
If
cool.
you know what Lyon?
Yeah,
Must know
Lyon, Marseille,
right?
I do. Ilya, what are you drinking?
This is Wild Tonic Hard Kombucha.
Nice.
The June kombucha made with honey, organic raspberries, and goji rose.
Wow.
I love the diversity. I'm just drinking bullet here, so not very sophisticated in a metadata like cup. So cheers, happy Friday.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for joining me for this one. Ilya, I know you a few months now because you invested, you're an investor in Metadata and the founder of Segment, and those two things are a dream. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself kind of briefly?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Ilya, I'm one of the co-founders of Segment. Back-end engineer, studied at MIT with my other co-founder, Calvin, and met my other co-founder, Peter, who was studying aeronautical engineering at the time. We were actually walking around MIT, like the dorms, and I just remember like there was these kids wearing capes and costumes, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to make any friends here. And then, I walked, opened the door into one of the like dorms that I'm looking at, and there's like, these like two shrimpy, kids from Seattle that know each other and that are talking, and I'm like, oh, thank God, some normals. So started hanging out with them. We decided to triple together.
They were not the normals. You were the abnormals, right? They were the abnormals.
Exactly. So the three of us decided to live together, and we did the computer science thing. And then junior year, we learned about startups, got super into startups, and then basically we failed. We got into YC, failed for about 2.5 years, and then just barely with like $50,000 left in the bank, came up with Segment, the idea, and then it took off. And yeah, we're a 600-person company now, based in San Francisco. So things are going well.
I'm super curious. What was the original idea that you started with? What were you trying to do when you failed for 2 years?
Yeah, great question. So the first one was an educational technology idea. So we were at MIT, so we didn't have any industrial experience in any other industries. So education was like the only thing we wanted to solve at the time. And so we knew in YC that one of the founders of YC was Robert Morris, who's also our computer science professor. And so we went to him. He taught us operating systems, and we said, Professor Morris, what do you think we should build? And he's like, what I really want is a button under all the students' desks that they could press if they're confused or not. So we built this thing. It's not a button, but like it's on your laptop. You go to a website. You can ask questions, and then you could say, I'm confused or I'm not confused. And then the professor gets this cardiogram of, class understanding. And if it dips, they can, stop and answer.
In real time, he's getting that information?
Yeah, in real time. And we beta tested this for like, 300, 500 person classes in Stanford and MIT. And it was just a complete disaster. So
also, like people did not understand anything. They kept saying like confused as fuck.
I'm thinking this is really fun. We can press confused. Look at his face. Let's press confused even more. Look, he's getting white.
Dopamine rush.
No. So it was like I think it was like a biology lecture, and the teacher, there's like 300 students in the class. He says, everyone, take out classmetric.com. So like all of a sudden, you just see a sea of people that were previously writing on a paper and pen. All of them take out their computers, and they open up Classmetric. They look at it for about 2 minutes. They get super like uninterested, right? Because it's just like basically I understand, I don't understand button and a question prompt. And then it's just a sea of Facebook. Like the entire 300 Facebook instances open in front of you. And we're just standing in the back of the class, like head in our hands, like, fuck, we have to give, investors back money. So
what a social experiment. That's very interesting. Yeah. Wait, how did you pivot from that to Segment? Now you have to give us the
story.
Yeah, we're like really, really having trouble with analytics during the time. And so we thought to ourselves, like Mixpanel is confusing, Google Analytics is confusing. Why don't we build our own analytics tool? It's like the engineers with their heads in the clouds kind of ideation. So our current idea back then was like segmentation is super important. So like if we could figure out computer science students versus educational technology, versus biology students, like they use different feature sets. And mixed panel didn't let you do that well. So we basically built like a mixed panel on steroids that was all about segmentation. That's where the name Segment.io comes from. It was too complex for the early stage startups that we were selling to. But we had this open source library that was kind of like hanging around in the background called Analytics.js that had a nice API to install analytics, and then you could like enable Google Analytics or Mixpanel and like 13 other providers really quickly. And we were about to run out of money. We realized our idea was terrible.
And why did you build that library?
So we realized that people weren't installing analytics tools because it was too difficult. So we're like, if we can lower the barrier to analytics entry, then it would be easier for people to adopt our crazy segmentation tool. You know what I mean?
That's like the WordPress plugin you had with like the snippet that automatically puts all the rest of the snippets in there. So you basically, you break it. That's it. You just install segment one time and then you don't have to ever put any embed code.
Exactly. That it was open source, exactly that. And that basically was way more popular than any of the other shit we were doing on GitHub. So one of my co-founders, Ian, was like, let's put it on Hacker News and see if, it's an idea. And we're all like, this horrible idea. Let's not do this. He convinced us. We put it on there, and like all of the comments were from developers saying like, I wish I had this in my job. I wish I had this in my job. Like, we found our new startup.
Wow.
That's amazing. Nicolas, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Chili Piper?
Yes, of course. As you can tell from my gray hair, I've done a few more things before. I'm not out of the dorm of MIT. Just wanted to travel the world. So I moved to college in Paris. I went to École Polytechnique when I did math and computer science. Then I went to London to do consulting. And then I thought I want to go to Hong Kong. I applied for a bunch of jobs in Hong Kong. I couldn't get a job. Nobody says, who the hell are you? So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get an MBA. Third time Stanford said, okay. So I moved to Stanford thinking, it's going to be awesome. 2 years in California, and then I moved on to Asia. Two things happened. The first one is 3 weeks into it, my classmate invited Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs came, sat on the floor. It was so inspiring. The guy is in the floor and he says, so this is what I did at Apple. And at next we're reinventing the computer. And this is so damn cool. This guy is just as an idea, reinvent the world. And then there's millions of people doing it. And that day I thought, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to stay here and become like him or some version of him. So I stayed in Silicon Valley. And ironically, I did my first startup with the very guy we fired Steve Jobs. So my partner in my first startup was John Scully. It just happened that way. I partnered with him. I did the first company. We grew it to 11 million. With consumer software. And then I thought, I'm the only one in San Francisco right now not doing internet. Literally, I was the only one in San Francisco not doing internet. My neighbors were. My classmate was the founder of eBay, and he hired another classmate's wife as employee number 6. And next thing, she's worth $60 million. She was the assistant, office assistant.
Those were the days.
That's right. So I figure I'm in the wrong business. Here I am building revenues on this consumer software. So I quit and I did an internet company. We encountered a species called inbound SDRs. So actually, I'm glad Ilya is here because segment is part of the story. So we said, what is your job, you, of an inbound SDR? And I said, so some people come to a website. Marketing spends a lot of money to bring in a website. They submit a form that they're interested in having a meeting. And my job is to call them and schedule a meeting. All right, that's the job. And how are you doing? I'm doing great. I'm converting at 40%. People tell me, we're doing awesome, we're converting at 40%. So you mean to tell me that 100 people asked for a meeting and 60 of them didn't get it? But that's, for some reason, that seems acceptable because they were comparing to outbound where 98 people don't get the meeting, right? You get 2% conversion rates. So we thought we're going to fix that problem. And that's why we decided we're going to change the way inbound is done. And we're going to build an application that upon form submission in real time qualifies, route, and book meetings. And ironically, the first person to bite was Guillaume when he was at Segment.
Guillaume Caban.
Guillaume Caban, that's right. Guillaume left, but the result came and it was 71% increase in conversion rates. So that got us in business. And then we started rethinking about all the processes around the inbound and how we can improve that. And that's where we are now.
That's a beautiful story. And, I funny because I actually know part of that story from Guillaume.
I'm sure he tells it differently. I'm sure he said that he called me to do it because he thought of it, or I don't know.
We all know the story. Right. Gentlemen, before we continue anything else, I would like to ask you to pour more drink.
Cheers.
What was the moment when you decided Segment is going to be a different category?
There's kind of very clear categories in marketing technology, right? There's 12 or 13 of these standard categories that people get, and there's always like new, every 2 or 3 years there's a new player. Like in data warehousing, there's Redshift, then there was BigQuery, now it's Snowflake. So like every two or 3 years, a new entrant comes in, and then we would come into a company and we'd say, look, it turns out that you're actually switching these tools every 2 or 3 years based off of a new entrant that comes in, or when you hire a new person. The company hired a head of analytics that wants to use Mixpanel, and then 2 or 3 years later, they'll hire someone else that wants to use Amplitude, and they'll want to switch. And so we said that instead you should have a lower infrastructure layer that would be able to hold your data and give you faster agility as new people would come in. Over time, a category started being created, which turned out to be customer data platform.
My marketing team a month ago came to me and said, we need a customer data platform. So they wrote the memo, and Segment was all over it. It's like it was synonymous with the customer data platform. So you've really managed to get all the mind share around your products for this new category.
Maybe for you, Nicolas, what was that moment that you felt like you achieved? Because you also, you also created a category, chili paper. It's very, very familiar.
Frankly, the moment when we finished this A/B test with Segment and Guillaume, I thought, this is amazing. This is a new category. That immediately I thought, okay, we've invented a new category, because nobody can continue doing inbound the old way, where the new way converts. So
Twice.
it was plus 61%, but everywhere else is plus 100%. And then that didn't happen. I'm not sure whether we did a poor job or whether the market wasn't ready. Now everybody seems to take it for granted, right? So now the category has come. People say, oh yeah, we use chili pepper. Chili pepper has become synonymous with this new way to do inbound.
We're happy customers of Chili Piper, and I honestly can't, I can't believe that once upon a time we didn't have that capability. How can that not exist, right?
100%. Plus one here. We're also a happy customer. We we ran a campaign.
Segment a metadata customer? Because look at, we all reciprocal customers, right? We use metadata.
We are all, it's not completely coincidental that the three of us are on this call.
Okay.
Ilya, tell us about the moment where you were, I don't know, home or in the office, and you saw some piece of news or an email, and you said, shit, I think we are in the category. I think we're like leading this fucking category right now.
So I don't know if we had a singular moment. We created customer data infrastructure before the word customer data platform was said. It trickled, It's like, oh, someone's calling this something like us customer data platform when we were calling ourselves customer data infrastructure. So it's like some player in the category starts saying some word, and then someone else starts saying another word, and then people pick their favorite word.
So what about you, Gil? What about your category? We were talking about
my God.
Are we allowed to ask you questions?
You're allowed to ask anything you want. Full disclaimer, I did not pay you to ask this question so perfectly.
If you want to pay me, I'm okay also.
It's just that battle of what? If you didn't get it for free, then we did something wrong. I started Metadata because I was a frustrated marketer. I was a software engineer that clearly saw that this can be solved. The whole, let's build a predictable inbound using a very particular list of target accounts that we're using. That particular use case was clear and it worked. And so we looked at companies like Terminus and Demandbase and Engagio, and they spent so much money on this thing called account-based marketing. And they told everyone it's the most important thing to do. So we said, great, it is very important to do. And we said, we're going to execute it the best. We're going to do account-based marketing in the most successful way, because we're going to use this process of experimentation and very accurate targeting to understand how to create that predictable outcome. That's how we got in. That's how anyone even knows about us, because marketers know that this tool, which belongs to this ABM category, seems like, can generate actual pipeline. And now we tell the bigger story of, well, look, ABM is just one use case, but you can also do sales acceleration, demand generation, brand awareness. We don't want to define or write down who we are, in our words, because what the fuck do we know? We're in a small room, talking like executives talking to another, or we're talking to analysts. And so what we did is we started running a lot of CAB and analyst conversations and win-loss analysis to really understand what customers perceive us to be. Nicolas, tell me about a moment in your pursuit of category dominance that was one of your biggest hashtag fails.
So we went to companies and we marketed around buyer experience, and we call ourselves a buyer enablement company. And we said the category we're enabling is buyer enablement. And we went buyer enablement, and nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit. It was unbelievable. It took a long time for us to give up buyer enablement because it seems so right intellectually, and yet it's so wrong when marketing-wise.
That is a great story. What about yours, Ilya? Tell us about your hashtag fail moment.
I think we once called it an analytics abstraction layer, which was just the worst name ever when we were just like
Subtraction.
Analytics abstraction layer when we're selling to developers and they love abstractions. This is like maybe 10 days into the entire project, but yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's an awesome one.
Category creation is one of those concepts that are being a little bit overused or becoming a cliche. Every company is a category creator. Every category creator is a category dominator. Like, it could be the case, right? How do you know that the company you're currently building, as much as you love it and it's doing something amazing, should or should not be a category creator or a new category and just join, an existing play?
I think the concept of a category is an amplifier. That's the reason why I want to name a category, is because you're going to be much more aspirational. I mean, you can't aspire to by segment, it's not aspirational, but building a customer data platform, right? Where you have a platform with this customer data, that's aspirational.
I think it's unwise to create a category for the sake of creating a category. Like when I think of Chili Piper, I don't know of any other alternative other than Chili Piper for that specific thing. And so when Chili Piper comes around, that is a new category because it's a new budget item. For Segment, it's a similar thing. When we would come to businesses, they were like, "Are you in the analytics tool?" We're like, "No, we have no graphs." "Are you a data warehouse?" "No, you can't query us." So it's like, "So what are you?" "Well, we're a customer data platform. We help you get your customer data and transport it into the higher levels and enable other categories." And so because of that, like, we don't know where to fit you. That's a good time for a company to create that. I think it's a miss to basically like spend a bunch of effort creating another category when one already exists and you can just differentiate within it.
Nicolas, tell us something about you that you do not share usually.
I have this big belief that we all brothers and sisters all over the world. So at Chili Piper, we went so on a micro level to that belief where we hire people everywhere in the world. So we are 60 people right now, and 60 people are in 55 cities in 20 countries.
Nice.
And we all, we all part of the same team. We all belong. And when we get together, last year we got together in Ibiza and got all these people together. It was just unbelievable. People, a Bulgarian software developer making friend with an account executive from Denver. This kind of.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So it's actually the hidden agenda at Chili Piper to teach
world
the world.
Peace.
Yes.
So you're hippie.
You want brotherhood? Yeah, I'm hippie. Yeah, I don't have my peace and love T-shirt, but I'll show it next time.
What about you, Ilya? Tell us something about you that no one else knows. I don't think you're a hippie. Maybe more of a hipster based on the kombucha.
Well, I have a very eccentric musical taste. I can tell you about that. I used to code a lot, and I like music that pumps me up and can keep me coding late into the night. And so there's this artist called Andrew WK, who is my favorite of all time. But if you know him, you're instantly going to think I'm crazy. But he, has a very inspirational message, and he's been around for 20 years. But people think that he's actually just a role being played by various people. Meaning, like, if you go to one of his concerts and you go to another, it might not actually be the same person playing. And what I think is basically that he, in the beginning of his career, wanted to create a role like that and convince people that he's not himself, but there's only actually one person. But he created the conspiracy ahead of time, just as like a mind experiment. There's basically like investigative reports on this guy. Like, he's not super popular, but if you read about it, if you have 10 hours to read about it, you really enjoy yourself.
Very interesting. First of all, let's cheers to that. Fuck, that was interesting stories. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nicolas and Ilya, tell us one secret that got you to where you are.
Well, for us, it's been probably open source. So since the very beginning, we would spend the day coding Segment, and then we would take some of the work that we created and we would put it on GitHub as open source. And 3 or 4 years later, I would be interviewing engineers, and they would be like, I've known for Segment all the time. Like, I don't even know what you guys do, but I've always known I wanted to work for you. And it's like, wow, really? What? Right? Like, you want to work at an analytics company, right? And they're like, yeah, we do. We've been like following everything you guys are doing. And so I think open source is just like this huge lever that allowed us to access a better level of engineer, which allowed us to build better infrastructure and deliver a better product to customers. So that's kind of been one of our big secrets.
Nicolas, what about you?
The secret, something we did on purpose, is that we bootstrapped, so we didn't have resources. So it was mostly me doing the sales and Alina doing customer success. And we immediately went for companies that were the influencers of the company. So there's a reason why I went after Guillaume Cabane, is because he's very good at his own publicity, right? I think we can all see that. So I thought, this guy is everywhere. If I get him to do, and he was our first customer for Inbound Solution. If I can get him to do it, he's going to tell everybody, and we're going to be everywhere. And that's exactly what happened. He switched company, went to other companies. He told everybody, and we purposely went after these companies where there's somebody who's really well respected, who's going to tell the world. My anti-secret is not a failure, but it's something that is working really well, but it was not by design. I mentioned earlier that we have this view of the world as together to people from every country, and we went to Ibiza and we showed all these photos of people partying in Ibiza, and people thought that was genius. It was such a smart idea to take people to Ibiza, and the reality is that that's not at all what happened. I had on my to-do list in my life the idea of doing the clothing of the Pasha Club in Ibiza. And I told Alina, I want to do the clothing of the Pasha. And she said, well, we can do that. We're very busy. And the world company where this work. And I said, but how about I take everybody with me? And she said, okay, let's take everybody with us. And so we took everybody with us because I wanted to do the clothing of the Pasha. And then people said, well, that was so smart to do a company trip in Ibiza.
That is badass.
That's the way to do a company trip. You do you see that a lot. You do something that you think is good for you, and most people will share with you and agree with you.
But did you have 60 people doing that with you?
No, at the time we had 32 people.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A company offsite in Ibiza. I don't think that takes a cake.
Incredible.
Yeah. We had the VIP table with a Dom Perignon all over. It was just good. It was one of the things that I think people should experience in life.
Gentlemen, is there anything else you would like to say before we finish this podcast today?
What happened the day when people name your new category, Gil? Do you get us another bottle?
I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna do a WhatsApp video. I hope you accept it. And yes, I'll do it.
You have to say, look, Forrester named us the leader in that God knows what category.
I'll turn on my Google Alerts starting today.
Perfect.
Good. All right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for the time today. I really enjoyed talking to you today. Thanks a lot. We learned a lot. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
See you later. Until the next time. Bye-bye.